All right, we're live.
Hey, number 16.
That's number 16. And sorry for being late on starting this one and also having it on a Thursday, not a Tuesday, but Tuesday was Valentine's Day, so
No, exactly. We needed to get the romancing
yeah,
in
that's right. Did
so
you see
that
the
way.
see the romance there?
No, exactly. Actually, did you do anything on Valentine's
No,
Day?
we didn't do anything romantic. We just had dinner in like we usually do.
So I'm gonna
Did you?
share
Did you have a
I'm gonna share
romantic
my
evening?
romantic day.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a conventionally romantic day, but it was a romantic day for us. Damn it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I didn't work obviously because I still have my injuries where I'm not working right now. My wife was working hard at home, but
There
she
you go.
decided to take a half day or
Okay.
almost a half day and get off at around 2. So at that point, what I did is I fired up the grill. Shout out to
Oh.
my wife. She got me a grill for my birthday one day,
Oh,
and
awesome. What kind of grill?
it is a Weber, and it
Ooh,
is a
charcoal.
it's a natural gas one, and it's
Okay.
not a propane tank one. It's where I have a gas line from my house that
Oh,
connects directly
fancy.
to the grill.
That's
And
fancy.
I tried to install it myself, but I started using those heavy wrenches to turn the gas knob, and
Yeah.
it was fucking doing some shit that made me scared. So I ended up getting
Uh-oh.
a plumber to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But I made hot
You don't want to
dogs
blow
on the
up your
grill.
house.
I made 4 Nathan's famous hot dogs,
Nice.
potato rolls, chopped up some pepperoncini and some olives,
That
put some
sounds
mustard
good,
on
man.
there. No,
Some
exactly. So
yellow mustard.
yep, we had those hot dogs. That was our lunch. Then after that, we took a nap, and we took a nap from about 2:30 till about 7 o'clock, and it was a damn good nap.
That's a nice nap.
It is. It's
That's
one
a
of those
nice
naps
nap.
that like you wouldn't usually take on a weekday because it would fuck up the rest of your schedule the whole week,
Yeah,
but it was a holiday. So
that's
that's what
right.
we did.
Romance is how you define it for yourself and and your partner. And that sounds pretty romantic to me.
Exactly. We just enjoy each other's company. We like
Yeah.
taking naps, put that together, and it's wonderful.
There you go. There you go. Um,
So that's why we're recording today on
that's
Thursday.
right. That's right.
Sorry.
Um, but yeah. So before we get into the topic, we just wanted to sort of, you know, talk a little bit about the derailment out in East Palestine. Hopefully,
Yeah.
well, not yay for the derailment, but hopefully they get help and Norfolk Southern is, held responsible.
Yeah, I heard
And
that
they
there
get an
was a
answer for what's going on
I
or
heard there
how it
was like
happened.
a town hall meeting
Did
that they
they?
were invited. A couple of the EPA
Yes.
agencies were invited. Some local government agencies were invited. And then they backed out. They
Norfolk
backed
Southern.
out like cowards because they
Yeah.
knew they were going to get their assholes ripped. They knew it was going to be trouble. And they were like, well, out of
Scared
concern
that
for our
they've
employees, we decided not to show up to this meeting.
yeah, that's what they said, right?
Yeah.
I'm just scared for people who live in that town who are
Yeah.
told that they can go back and there was an article in the New Republic that was and also I think one in the Washington Post um where they've talked to some of the residents and they're like, we're feeling sick. So,
Yeah.
I'm just really I mean, because we saw what the government was saying about Flint, right? With their water. And they were like, oh, yeah, Obama was like, it's totally cool.
Yeah, this water's
And then he
okay.
took like the teeny little sip of
Oh,
water and,
spit it out when no one was
spit it right.
looking.
Yeah. Uh, so we know sort of like all the fuckery that happens because they're never going to tell them like the full extent of how bad it is.
Yep.
And they're just going to try to cover it up, and, give a little pittance of money. You know,
$15,000 at the last count.
So, oh yeah, well, to each resident, because I read
Oh
that
no,
they
it was just like $15,000 toward the collective cleanup and charity effort
I read
for
that
Norfolk Southern.
it went up to like 1 million,
Okay.
but they've also been trying to go around to give individual people like $1,000 or maybe like 10,000 or $15,000 individually. So in addition to their general like cleanup money fund, they're trying to go to, and then the lawyers, I've read that some lawyers in the area are basically are advising any resident to not take those payments
Yeah,
because
don't
it
take
can be
that shit.
used as evident. It can be used against you by the company to say, look, if there's like a class action or other lawsuit that um, that is brought, and then Norfolk Southern has to pay out.
Yeah,
If they have a record that you took a payment earlier, they might
you took an
be able to
early
use that to
settlement.
exclude you from the other settlement money.
Yep.
So, but which is the sound legal advice, but it can be hard for someone who's not particularly wealthy.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of like, so I read in one article where like one person's cat developed congenital heart failure right after this derailment,
Yeah.
and the treatments were like thousands and thousands of dollars, and they couldn't afford it.
Oh man, yeah, that's sort of a situation
Do you said
rife for
because they
taking
said
that.
they told the people like we can help with we'll help with your bills for you, your pets, whoever, and they were like, no, we can't help you. And then the woman couldn't continue to afford the treatments, and they had to put the cat to sleep, and then she still owes like $9,000 or something, and the
Yeah,
company's not going to help her. So
that's wild.
yeah, it's wild. And it's like a thousand more, like a thousand or so, more or less, usually more. Derailments happen in the United States every year, which is
Two
like
to three a day.
2.7 a day. So two to three, right, a day derailments. Now, most of them are probably very minor and don't cause any damage, and to cargo or anything like that.
Hmm.
But there are occasionally ones like this, and there was one in 2012 in Jersey. And there are a lot of them. You can look them up. They're not hard to find if you Google them. Um, and when they're bad
They're
because
bad.
they like they we're hauling tons and tons and I mean, hundreds of thousands, millions and millions of tons of toxic chemicals all over the place.
Oh my
Um,
god.
and
See, I mean, when I hear the chemicals that were involved with this one, right? You know, uh, vinyl chloride. It's the monomer that goes into the processing of
for making
PVC.
PVC piping, yeah,
Yeah, so it's a regularly used
super common,
chemical compound
super
that just
common.
happens to be very toxic to human beings to the point where it's like less than 8 parts per million in the air is considered a hazard by OSHA, a chronic workplace hazard.
Yeah, yeah.
And
You can't be exposed to more than 8 parts per million for like one work day. So like a
yeah,
constant 8 parts per million in the air, if you're in that environment for like 8 hours, that's like the limit.
yeah. And if we're
Um,
talking about parts per million,
anything above that is not good.
yeah, and if we're talking about a mere 8 out of
Yeah.
a realm of parts per million, that is a very tiny amount of concentration within the air for it to be that toxic to a human
And
being.
this was and I don't know how true this is because there's a lot of conflicting information, and I haven't checked all the little facts, but I have
Yeah,
heard that like um there was some deregulation, or there was some exception made where crane cars filled with vinyl chloride didn't have to be marked as like hazardous or something like
I
that.
heard
So then if you
something to
don't
that
mark them that
effect.
way, then like there are different safety precautions that you do or don't have to take. Um, Hopefully at some point a detailed report will come out that we can then have good reporting on. But that's part of the frustration, right? Is that there just hasn't been
We
any
haven't heard shit.
yeah, like we just haven't had like a definitive or at least a detailed persistent article up where people can be like, this is the facts about what was carried, and potential dangers of it and things like that. It's just sort of it's China balloon, UFO was shot down. And I was saying
Exactly.
this to a friend of mine. I'm like, I would not have believed that it was that UFOs being shot down by the US military would be so boring.
Hmm.
Like little kid me, and I'm like a huge science fiction fan, and like, I want to believe and all that stuff. Like I believe in aliens, but like this is so boring. Like the whole thing about
Yeah,
them
there's been
shooting.
no follow-up conversation about it whatsoever. It's like, hey, there were UFOs. They were unidentified. We don't know what they were, but they're gone now. And no one's like, well, hey, what were they? What was going on?
It's like it's not even exciting. I would think like, oh my god, fighter jets were scrambled. We shot down something over Alaska. It's like so boring. It's
Yeah,
like there's like there's no tension. And I think part of it is because everyone just wants to blame it on China.
yeah.
Like they want to blame it on like
It's
somebody.
the
And it was
easy
like
way.
it was a balloon. I'm like, okay, shooting down a balloon and being hysterical about it is not exciting. Like, what the fuck? So it's like, but every story, it's just balloon this, balloon that. It's like some other bullshit story. And we're not hearing about like, an environmental disaster, and we're not hearing about a lot of other stuff. So it's like very frustrating.
And,
Uh,
I'm no chemistry expert, but I did do decently well on the AP chemistry test when I was a junior in high school. And if I remember correctly, just on the basis of the experiments that we did in class, like you burn that vinyl chloride and
yeah,
it becomes HCl. And HCl dissolved
hydrogen
in water,
chloride. Yeah,
that is hydrochloric acid.
yeah,
And depending on the molarity, depending on the concentration of that shit, that's like one of the most dangerous acids you can encounter. So the
yeah.
fact that people are having like irritated lungs, and like chickens and dogs and cats are breathing this shit in and they're dying, I'm like, I'm no chemistry expert, and there are plenty of material science engineers out there that know 20,000 times more than I do. But just my intuitive read of the situation and the dumbass decision making that went into, hey, we need to take these millions of gallons of this chemical. We need to burn it. We need to combust it. We need to get it the fuck out of here.
Yeah, but like at the same time, even if that was the smart thing to do because they couldn't get the equipment in to transfer it from the potentially exploding uh train cars into like a tanker trucks. They couldn't get them in there, right? So it might have been the case that burning it off was the smartest thing to do. But I think they're like sort of discounting like the risk of, as you said, like when you burn it, unless you're containing those fumes, which I don't think they really did, right?
I think we all
Um,
saw that picture of that black cloud that
yeah,
was looming over what seemed like hundreds of miles of
yeah.
skyline.
So like maybe they did, but here's the thing, right? Like they didn't even say like there was no report that came out that was like posted in all of the major news sources that like we burned this, we collected this or we burned this off, and in the process of that burn off, we had, we did it in this way so that we could minimize X, Y, or Z. They didn't do that. There was none of that. It
Yeah,
was
they
just
didn't
sort
give
of
any
saying that like we
explanation.
collected it into these pits and we burned it. Like, it's like it was like they treated it like some leaves that they gathered from, in their yard
Hmm.
and they burned them. Right. And I'm like, wait a minute.
We
Wait a
got rid
minute.
of them. They're
Wait a
gone.
minute. Like, it doesn't seem like that doesn't seem very smart. And the one document I saw that was the official document from the EPA that like assessed sort of what happened. They were
Yeah,
like, we actually saw people just sort of like taking those burn pits and putting like dirt over them. And then like they were like they observed like some pools of the liquid, because like the vinyl chloride's a liquid, right?
yeah,
Transported in liquid form. They're like, yeah, we saw just sort of like some of the spillage that was next to the train tracks. Like no one like cleaned that up. They just sort of like put dirt over it. They're like, yeah, they're like, we
yeah,
observed it like leaking into some of like, other water sources. They didn't like talk about that.
yeah.
They didn't talk that like they did anything to try, and they're testing it, right? And I think it is going to be filtered, and I think some of the doomer stuff about how like, oh no, the whole Ohio Valley, River Valley is like contaminated. That's probably not true, but like they're not talking about it at all. So it's sort of like, eh.
I mean, I
So
feel
it's just
like until
ripe
I
for
get more
like,
details on
yeah,
what's
it's ripe
going
for
on, my assumption is shit's
don't
gonna
drink
be
the
kind of
water. I mean,
fucked.
yeah.
Look 15 years down the line, see what kinds of cancers and what kinds of chronic diseases we have coming from this in that
Well,
geographic area.
because what I've read is that if you get a good concentration of, I think, the hydrogen chloride, and or maybe it was the vinyl chloride, forget which one,
Mhm,
um, it actually sort of attacks the liver, so the
mhm.
liver gets damaged specifically with these chemicals, And then I think with hydrogen chloride, it can increase the chance of rare liver cancers by like a
Damn.
ton. So like one thing to look out for is if there's some increased level, and I'm sure that like if there were um, some lawsuits or whatever, right? They always look to see for certain diseases that go up in like concentration, right?
Yeah.
And one of them, I think, in this area that people need to look out for is this like liver cancer.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's scary as fuck. Like, and it just sort of, they're like, oh yeah, we had this thing on the 3rd. We burned the stuff off on like the 4th or the 5th. And yeah, by the 8th, you guys can go back. It's cool.
It's
Like,
cool. Just go back.
I don't know, man. Like, I'm sure
I'm just
not.
thinking like the kinds of things that could have made contact with those toxic chemicals and the kinds of things that you need to live a daily life in any particular location, breathing the air, drinking the water,
Well,
any
yeah,
of
that's
that
the thing.
shit.
They didn't like clean this up like right away. It had time.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's like that's what I'm like afraid of, is that they were sort of just saying that this is okay, and then they're gonna, sort of force these people
we
back.
burned it
And
off. It's good.
yeah, and it's just, and it doesn't make me feel good that they're like, oh yeah, this, people are like tweeting, they're like, it happens all the time. I'm like, that doesn't make me feel any
Yeah, that
better,
doesn't make
that
me
like the
feel any better.
derailments are like a normal thing. Like it's good that most of them are not like that serious, but it's kind of bad that we're sort of living in this state. And like when Norfolk Southern makes, they've made, the last 4 or 5 years, they've just made record profit every year.
Yeah.
They're like, they made like, I don't know how many billions of dollars last year. And the government basically forcing the workers, rail workers, to go back to work, and you can't,
Hey,
you
stop
can't
bitching. You
strike.
have it good enough. Yeah.
That doesn't make me feel, and like it doesn't make me feel like we're going towards a point where we're trying to like it feels like they've like given up on it. Like,
Yeah.
we care, we care, like it's low enough, the profits are now more important.
Yeah. The
And so
profits that we are losing from these accidents does not outweigh the cost it would take to prevent these accidents in the
yeah,
first
because
place.
that's the real cost of the derailment for Norfolk Southern, is the lost revenue for the fact that like they, but they can't drive a train through there right
Yep.
anymore, for a while at least. Maybe they started again. I think they probably started again, but
Well,
like
I
for the
know they're
first
probably
day or
rushing to
two,
do it.
right, they couldn't do it. And they lost that shipment of cargo, so they probably have to pay something for that. So like there's like there's a cost there, but they're not going to have to pay a fine or like anything like that. Like, that's my cynical take, is that they're not really going to have to pay a fine, and if they do, it's a slap on the wrist. And the EPA was like, oh yeah, you guys have to pay for the cleanup. I don't know if they're ever going to pay. Like they'll clean it
Yeah.
up, and they'll. I don't think the EPA is going to force them to pay for it.
Yeah, what are
Like,
they gonna do?
so it's just,
They're
it's
gonna
all
fire
bullshit.
people? Yeah,
It's all
so
bullshit. But it's just so funny, people coming out of the woodwork trying to like, no, or like the worst people who are angry about people trying to like, bring attention to this are like the Democrats and like the liberals and people who are like, you guys weren't upset about these when Trump was president, or like,
oh my god.
how dare you criticize Buttigieg. He's just been in there for a little bit. He can't solve all the problems. Like, this was because of Trump. I'm like, you can blame both people.
Yeah.
You can blame all of them. Like,
Yeah.
wow, like, I can't blame the fucking current Secretary of Transportation.
Yeah, the leader and overseer of this shit.
He's
Give me a
not just
break.
like, it's not like he entered office yesterday. Like, he's had a couple of years.
Yeah. And he's had a
Um,
couple of positions in office to kind of get used to this sort of scrutiny when bad
yeah,
shit happens.
it took
And
him 10 days to say anything about it. Like,
yeah, he hasn't said shit. The only thing that he said is like, my hands are tied right now, and I can't really guarantee that this won't happen again.
well, which is fair enough that he can't guarantee it won't happen again, because it happens 1,000 times a year. So of course he can't
True.
guarantee it. I mean, in fact, between my tweet and like today,
Yeah.
There were like 4 other derailments.
Yeah. Shout out to the train derailment in Van Buren Township, Michigan. That
That
is
just
about
happened,
10
right?
miles away from my alma mater, the University of Michigan. Looks like there was only one car with hazardous materials in it.
Okay, that's
Thankfully, it
good.
was not breached.
That's good.
But shout out to that derailment nonetheless. That happened in my hood.
Just insane, man. Just insane.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, like the F-22 was the first kill.
It really was.
Um, they were very excited to shoot those missiles. I'm sure maybe that's why they missed the first couple of times.
Yeah.
Little
300,000
little
each.
inaccuracy, but the huge like it's hilarious. Like the Republicans are like, "Oh, it's the biggest balloon. Look how big this balloon was." And then they're like, it took them a few times, like it took a military a few tries to shoot it down. I'm like, it was that huge, meaning it's dangerous, but then we couldn't shoot it down with our like fucking $5 bazillion jet. Like, what's going on? It was
Yeah.
white.
Like,
It was white, so
did it miss that first
it was
time?
hard to shoot it because of the clouds. I don't know.
Must have been. Damn.
Yeah, because so yeah, the missiles, they're totally they totally can only hit things that they can see, and they can't see it, visually. Totally not radar guided or anything like
Oh my
that.
god.
It's just crazy. Um,
Crazy.
just insane. But anyway, on to our happier topic. Do you want to
Yeah.
introduce it?
Sure. So I wanted to talk today about friendship, particularly for adults. I think anyone that's not an adoptee that's listening or watching is at least an adult if they're not an adoptee. But I
Mm-hmm.
think,
Hopefully adults only.
yes, exactly. No kids allowed. If they are, send them to bed right now. But I mean, I guess I wanted to talk also about relationships and friendships from our perspective as adoptees,
Hmm.
given that I think adoptees tend to have a unique experience with understanding that love is not necessarily unconditional like we idealize in our English language American culture today. I think a lot of adoptees find out through hard pills to swallow or otherwise some difficult way of finding out that there are certain conditions to how you act or what you do in your life to attract people or maintain relationships that puts dents in the notion that love in itself is unconditional. And I think it makes adoptees more conscious of the kinds of actions that they take or the decisions that they make when they're in relationships and the sorts of worries and
Mm.
neuroses they
Mm-hmm.
have in their friendships as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for me at least, um, I'm sort of at a point in my life where I've been reflecting on that a lot because I'm transitioning from being like a 20 something young adult to being a 30 something like real ass adult with real
Mm.
ass adult expectations. And in particular,
Okay.
what I was sort of thinking about was when I was younger, when you're in high school, when you're in college, you yourself tend to be insecure
Uh-huh.
and tend to be pretty malleable with who you are and I guess how you act depending on who you're around. And it's really only in your 30s and later where I guess the social life seems a little bit less hierarchical and judgmental,
Okay.
and then it sort of leads to this realm of you can be truer to yourself, but it is more difficult overall to meet people. And when it's more
Mm-hmm.
difficult overall
Mm-hmm.
to meet people, what kinds of things do you look for in people that you meet that could make for a good friendship that attracts you to them? Or what are red flags that come up in relationships in like your 30s and 40s where you're like, I might have accepted this shit when I was a teenager or in my 20s, but
Mm-hmm.
I can't really fuck with that anymore. And
Yeah. I think a trait that that I look for or I try to avoid that I might have tolerated a lot more in my youth is like flakiness.
mm,
So if someone is excessively sort of flaky, where, and by that I mean like, uh they cancel plans sort of at the last minute, or like frequently, not like they can't ever do it, but like every time,
Hmm.
more times than not. And or um yeah, like just canceling plans, like just very frequently, or just never want, like never committing to plans. Like if you reach out and they're like, oh yeah, yeah, we'd love to meet, and then like they never, you know actually end up, either just like for a phone call or video chat, or if you're close enough, like to get like meet up. um yeah, like I try, that's a big red flag, like
Like
before, like,
locking it in stone and making it a
yeah,
commitment.
just like committing to it, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like, no, we're friends, we're not dating, right? It's like, or it's like, I'm not asking you to marry me or like whatever. It's just sort of like, this is just a commit. Like, what's the problem? We're just gonna grab a drink or something, or like it's just, or like we're gonna have a phone call. Like, well, you can't agree to like that day or time, like a day or time, because like I don't mind if it's like once in a while. It's just sort of like,
Yeah,
there's
life
something though.
happens.
You can do it, right? Um, and we can all be flexible and be like, oh, we're all busy, but it's just like, okay, we chose a date and time, right? Like, and so yeah, just avoiding people who are like just excessively flaky, because I'm like, I don't have time to like deal with that. It's like, you know, I just don't have time to deal with that. When I was younger, I would have probably just, you know, dismissed it, and then dealt with it more,
Mhm.
and just kept like it tried harder. Nowadays, it's like I don't try. Like if that happens more
Like
than,
trying hard to coordinate things and make it
yeah,
work on
yeah,
everyone's schedule sort of thing.
yeah, yeah, or like just keeping them in the Rolodex when like, or like reaching out. It's like, if they're not making a commitment back, then I'm not gonna continue to like be the only one that seems to like want to keep the friendship going. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Absolutely. So, like, with I guess one group that I'm sort of curious about as it relates to you is, like, plan A,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that you formed relationships with the people that are involved with plan A,
Yeah,
and then decided to work together
of
on
course.
an
Yeah.
Asian American publication. So, like, what was it about that group? And actually, how did you guys meet or interact with each other to sort of come to the decision to wanting to work
Well,
together?
yeah. I mean, mainly it was online, and then some of us were in the same area, so we met up like in person,
Yeah.
and hung out a fair deal. And then there are there are people in other parts of the country that we would just communicate with constantly online, or we used Slack for a bit, and then we moved to Discord. Um, so like there was just a lot of communication. Um, so yeah, and then I think just being able to constantly be like, just not feeling like it was an obligation, but just wanting to continue to talk to everybody. Um, and we all had a certain, all of us had certain skill sets and experience, and we planned together, and we committed to times to talk, and we all got together if we wanted to like seriously plan stuff. And yeah, and we just decided, and it just got done, right? Like eventually, there was enough motivation and impetus that it just got done. um and it continues to get done. We don't publish many pieces anymore, but we do the podcast. And it's always been a rotating cast, so it's, you know, but it's a collective effort.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is, I really think about where I'm meeting most of who I would consider friends these days, new friends, people that I want to become closer to or work with in some way.
Hmm.
And I guess when I really think about it, it's not really like in workplace settings.
Yeah, none
Uh,
of us work together.
It might be
Yeah.
in some community settings, maybe like culturally, like if I go to like some Korean American cultural event,
Mm.
maybe. But I just feel like as an adult, I feel like as the years have gone by, I've I've dug more and more deeply into my own personal interests. And as a result, it is more difficult to find randos or people that I just run into in everyday life where I feel like we are at the same point intellectually or
Mm.
reflecting on like our place in American society or about culture. And it happens from time to time, and when it does, it feels like a fucking blessing. It feels like finding a diamond in the rough. But I feel like most of the relationships that I've established, especially since the pandemic started,
Mhm.
has pretty much been just online.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I feel like yeah, I feel like everyone that I talk to now on a regular basis that's not someone I already knew is someone that I've interacted with on Twitter, and I'm in a group chat with them, or we just happen to have similar interests and we DM each other from time to time. So I feel like even though at this point it might be a norm to just meet people that you can relate to online, I think, when we were
Mhm.
really coming up in our young adult years, that may have been the case, but it was much more stigmatized. Like you're meeting your friends online, you don't know them in real life type shit. And but I'm coming to find that just the way you interact with other people online, if you share common interests or
Mhm.
common beliefs or ideology, that you get straight to the good stuff. Like you don't have to wade through the sort of casual questions or small talk questions that you would at like a party meeting someone for the first time or at some sort of professional or work event. And I think
Mm.
these days, just based on the way my life is structured right now, I think that tends to be my preferred way of meeting people, just generally. Although, once I guess, build up a crowd of people that I enjoy being around in person, then I can start meeting like mutual friends and things like
Right,
that.
right.
But yeah, and until I reach that point in the environment that I'm in, I mean, I'm sticking with meeting with people online. I guess it's just it comes from a youth and then like a young adulthood of just being in contact with people online and not
Mm.
having any sort of reservations or insecurities about having friends that originated on the internet and not in real life in some way.
Yeah, well, I think that's been a big switch just in society, uh, that, uh, there's it's seen as very normal that that people meet most of their friends, even if they become friends in real life, right? But that, like, they initially became aware of each other just through the internet. I think that's become pretty normal, right? Just like
Yeah,
people, it's become very normal for people to say that like they met their significant other, right, their wife or their husband or whatever, on online, right, like on a dating app. Like that's
yeah. I
become
guess
very
that's been
normal.
the case for both of us. So
Yeah, yeah, both of us.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's why wouldn't it be the case for just friendship, right? Especially since so many people spend so much time online. Um, but I do think that there are still a significant number of people who basically know, most of their actual friends are just people that they grew up with, right?
yeah.
Or that they went to college with, or maybe that they met through work. Um, but
Yep. I'm curious for you. When it comes to people that you regularly stay in contact with or feel close to, are any of them people that you grew up with?
sorry,
You're good.
uh, this is gonna sound bad, but no. Um,
That's
I
cool.
don't really know anyone. I don't really have any contact really with anyone I went to school with. Even college friends. I had some pretty close college friends. I'm a bad person. I just I don't know. I've lost contact. And a lot of the time I think it's just like out of sight, out of mind, or
Yeah, I
people,
mean,
drifting
proximity
apart,
makes so
or
much of a difference.
proximity, or just yeah, I don't know. It's like I feel really bad about it because some people I really liked and like had a lot of fun times with. Um, yeah, uh, there are some people that I know that like I became friends with that I'm still friends with, even though I wasn't close to them, like proximity. But
Mhm.
there aren't many. There aren't many. It's like my family, and then like uh, some very few friends that I'm close with, and then a lot of the people that I grew up with, they're all over the place, right? Like,
Yep.
and even if they're sort of kind of close, like I lived in New York City for a time, and there are plenty of people from where I grew up that ended up back in New York City, but it I didn't really have any desire to like like reconnect with them and then like continue like to then kindle another relationship beyond what we had for like growing up, like
Mhm.
because I didn't go to college with them, and through college, like I was just so into where I was in college. Like there was so much going on with my life overall that like I didn't really stay in. And even the people I went to college with that I went to high school with, I didn't stay really in contact with them. We all had our own lives, even on the college campus. Um,
Absolutely.
and I feel like horrible saying that. Because I feel like I still feel that there's like there I should have done more, like I should have yeah, you know, but that's just the way it was. And like now it's like people in Plan A, you, my friend Christian, who I've been known for a long time, and my brother, and like they're really my close friends, and they're other people that I know. There's some other people I know that I would consider friends, but like I don't have like. Did you have you did were you ever one of those people that had like a ton of friends that you would consider like close friends, or did you always have like a few people that were your close friends, but then and you had like maybe a somewhat wider group of like people you were friendly with or friends, and then like just sort of everyone else who's an acquaintance, but you know
See, that's a good
what was your
question. That's a good question. Because I think I've always been the type of person to, I guess this is not like the greatest sounding way of doing things, but I have had a way of categorizing my friends when it comes to how close I think they are to me and how close I think they are to them. And just the kinds of expectations that I had as a result of this feeling of closeness.
yeah
And I feel like because I wasn't like a super popular kid in my white suburban hometown,
hmm,
I needed to get involved in other places, like I've talked about previously with like the Korean church or like summer camps, things like that. There have been multiple places or multiple groups where I've had friends, and it's really depended on like how much I fit in with that general group in that setting. So like, in school or locally, like I just had like I'd say, I was quarantined in like nerd classes by the time
yeah,
high
me
school
too.
hit. So basically, like I had a ton of acquaintances that were just like your aspirational college bound nerd type kids. I wasn't super close to most of them. But they were good enough acquaintances where I mostly enjoyed my time being in class and it wasn't too miserable. And, within that sort of large group of acquaintances, I probably had between like 4 and 5 close friends that I could do things individually with that I felt much closer to.
Hmm.
Whereas like with people that I went to summer camp with that were fellow Korean American adoptees, like I had a lot of friends that were really close in that environment because we just related to each other that much more. Um, and we stayed close consistently up until about college or so. And I'd say the same thing about like my friends in college. Like I mostly stuck around Asian Americans or stuck around things related to like Japanese language that I was studying. So
Hmm,
there was a
that's
little
right.
bit
Yeah.
of closeness or a little bit of sort of like obscure niche interest involved that made people a little bit more tight knit. Um, but I feel like, I've always had, like, a large group of people that I could count on, just feeling like I was part of a community, while also having, like, a select group of up to around, like, 5 individuals or so. that I felt really close to that
Okay.
I could call on at any time.
Okay.
So I guess in that sense, when I look at that zoomed out, like in comparison to your average American, I mean, I felt pretty blessed by that because I'm definitely an introvert by nature. Like
Okay.
if I'm going out in a crowd of like, I don't know, like an event with a bunch of Asian people there, I don't like introducing myself or saying what I do or meeting new friends and things like that. I'm usually the type of person that like kind of sits in the cut, kind of observes people to see, okay, this person seems cool, this person seems whack and fake. And then like where I would usually take my opportunity to really get to know people is find the people that would smoke cigarettes and just
Oh,
like have that
I
conversation over a cigarette. I can't
nice.
do that
Nice.
anymore. Nicotine's been my number one struggle in my entire life. I started up again in 2021 and then it took another year to quit again.
No. Okay.
So, like the last time I quit was as of November 2022.
Okay.
So I am
No
about
more. No
I'm
more.
about 4 months free now.
All right.
Again, like my 5th time quitting, give or take. Nicotine's
It is
tough,
hard.
man.
It's a tough one. I
It's and
heard.
it's
Yeah.
it's
I
it's
definitely heard
tough
it's a
when
tough
you've
one.
used it as a social crutch.
Yeah.
Shit,
Yeah.
especially among
Well, I mean,
Asian
but
people that
that's
drink,
drinking
dude.
too, right? That's drinking too, right?
Yep,
Like a lot of
drinking,
people,
Korean
myself
people.
included, definitely. It's like a
Yeah,
crutch.
dude. I mean, I've had some of my best, most memorable conversations over a cigarette after I've drank a lot in
Oh
Asia.
yeah.
So that's what made that whole process real rough. I've needed to
Oh yeah.
reinvent myself to just try not to get stuck in that temptation again.
Oh, I
So,
know, definitely.
because
Um,
like, I gotta say, there's magic moments when it comes to those like shared drunken smoking moments in comparison to your average sort of like meeting someone new in a
yeah, yeah.
college class or something. There's something special about just like fucking off and having a cigarette outside the cut where everyone else is doing
Well,
something that you're not super into.
I think it's because people are not as self-conscious. Like they're more in the moment and more honest, both with themselves and with other people. I think
Hmm.
that's something that like cigarettes, smoking, or like nicotine, maybe, and then especially alcohol does to people.
Yep,
Um, I think aside from sort of, I think the feeling of maybe there are a lot of reasons why people smoke and drink, but I think one of the big reasons is that it's a artificial shortcut into feeling sort of like a looseness or like
yeah, like a
with
camaraderie.
freedom, right?
Yeah, like
Um,
yeah, you're fucking disrespecting your body too. Let's go.
yeah, yeah, all of it, right? But it's not just sort of like, you know, I don't know, like the feeling drunk. I think it's a lot deeper than that, and I think that's why it continues to be something that humans do just in general, right? And it's a social lubricant.
It is. It
But
absolutely is.
yeah, no, I mean, and I have, and I'm like, as I think about it, I'm like, and I feel bad, like I don't want to leave anyone like I during the time that I've involved with Plan A and doing all this stuff sort of more openly, on social media and the podcast, and then starting this series with you and everything. Like I've met more people that I would consider that I have more of a deeper connection to, and like like Trevor, Champagne Sharks, Millie, our friend, and Tume, all the bunch of different people. So like it's more people now, I think, than I've had before that I would consider like, even if I'm not always as communicative with them as I should be as a friend, like I know that,
Yeah.
I'm always there for them and they're always, here for me. So, and I don't think I could have done this 10 years ago, you know.
Really? Like what about 10 years ago and who you were and what you were doing versus now makes you feel like you're more capable of doing this now?
Um 10 years ago, I hadn't been married yet, or like my first time. And I think I was still very much I cared more anyway, because I can't say I don't, but I cared more about what others felt. I felt like tied to obligations of like my role of being, an older brother and being a son and being like, so like I felt beholden to certain things that I felt like you had to do at these times, or because of who you were, or like your space and role in society
Yeah.
and your family. And certainly I still feel certain things, like certain family obligations and things I don't feel are burdens, right? Like being a being a son or being a child and having to take care of your parents, or sort of those role switching where, like, the parents, as they get older, um they get to a point where, and I think you're familiar with this, like it gets to a point where suddenly now you're taking care of them, they're not taking care of you. And
Yeah.
it's like when they're fully capable and you're an adult, it sort of like is a weird space where it's like they don't need to take care of you, but they always have that instinct and they're also
Yep.
capable of doing it. And then you're an adult, so like you don't need them to take care of you, but at the same time, they don't have the need for you to take care of them.
Yep.
But then there gets to a point, I think, for every um okay, where every parent gets to a point, right, as they become more elderly, and as that they become less and less capable of taking care of themselves.
Hmm.
And then the children have to sort of step up to take care of them. And
That's
then
the
that
oh
sort of
shit
flips
moment.
the dynamic.
Yeah.
And so like I think that's a good like I don't fight against the obligation. I think that's something that people should embrace, and it's not like a burden. I think it's just sort of like it's part of the human condition.
Hmm.
Um, but 10 years ago, I was so still sort of like, oh, I need to do all these things because if I don't, then like they're gonna miss out on it. Like my parents won't see me get married or all that stuff. And I'm like, and I realized that like my parents didn't care about any of that stuff really. Like they just
Yeah.
wanted me to be happy about it, take care of myself, right? That they didn't like if they were gone, like I would be all right eventually, right? Um, but since then, I think a lot's changed, and like I've tried to let go a lot of that stuff. I've gotten, married, and like, owning property, and like also just knowing that like I could be a part of starting something like Plan A, right? And that
Hmm.
it continues on, and people have been positively impacted by it, right? Like, so uh, that gives you confidence when you realize you can do stuff like that. Um, so like and then that just in terms of making friendship, like then I feel more confident. I feel to just sort of be okay being like, oh yeah, okay, I met you. I doesn't mean we need to be friends. It's all right, you know, or just being okay with not having too many friends too. It's
Hmm.
sort of like, all right, I know the people I like, and these are my friends, and if not, then we're fine. Like we know each other, but that doesn't mean anything. It's like I'm not. It is what it is. So yeah, I don't know. It's rambling, but
Now, I think that's one thing I've realized as I've gotten older myself is when I compared the number of friends that I perceived I had in like high school and college versus the people that I thought were like the most popular or charismatic or most involved. And that was the sort of bar that I had for myself at that time. Like, hey, having like 20, 30, 50 plus friends that would allow me to throw an event or a party at any given time and have the support of people all around me to be able to make it possible.
yeah,
Um, but I guess I realize now as I'm older that that's really like an outlier thing in terms of just like having that sheer number of people around you that would be willing to do stuff like that. But I guess more importantly, just reminding myself that just because that quantity of people is there, that like they aren't necessarily close to you or they
right.
don't feel you don't necessarily feel like you can rely on them in some sort of emergency situation and expect them to like drive you to the emergency room sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's the real for me. Like, can I rely on someone in an emergency? Is like the true measure of like whether we're close or not.
Hmm.
And would I also like be willing to drop everything? Reasonably think that they would call me to like help them out, right? Because of
Hmm.
course, if someone's gonna like, if I know someone and I will try to help them, right? If they're like really needed it, but yeah, that's sort of like that's a big criteria. I think like would you be able to rely on them?
Hmm. And so, I mean, one thing for me that I guess that is one really big thing that I feel like I've had to question over the last, I'd say, 2 years or so. With the pandemic, with my role as a child, in
Mm,
comparison to like my mom who got sick and now needs some taking care of. It really made me evaluate the kinds of relationships that I had with people that I consider to be friends or close friends. And I guess like through that experience, it makes me think about the people that like I'm just like, I can't fuck with you anymore. Like you're out. And I don't really like thinking in that way. I don't really think anyone
sure.
does
Yeah.
when it comes to like thinking about people you've had good memories with, you've been close to, they've been your friend, but over time, there's something about you that's changed that hasn't changed for them, or vice versa. But I guess now I feel like I'm right at that prime age where you really start thinking about that shit, my early 30s, because I guess anyone that's having struggles or anyone that's having difficulties in their 20s, you don't want to just write them off. I mean, they are early enough in phases of their life where there's plenty of chances for redemption. There's plenty of
Yeah.
chances for people to grow and to figure out what they want to do or what they want from life. But I guess what I'm specifically thinking about and referring to is people that had things that made me kind of cautious in our teens and 20s, like people that I met in college and gave them a lot of grace, thinking like, hey, you've got a lot of emotional stuff to navigate.
Mhm.
You've got a lot of
Mhm.
mental health stuff to navigate. I'm not going to write you off because I see a lot of good things in you. But by the time age 30 hits and they're not taking care of responsibilities that I started taking care of when I was like 22 or 23, now is the point where I start getting frustrated and I start needing to tell people, hey, you need to fix your shit
Mhm.
because the people that I'm thinking about that I've had to do this with
Mm.
are people that have always, up to this point, had some sort of reason for why these bad, misfortunate things were happening. Like,
Okay, so you just mean that, like, do you mean just like people who are immature, or that like they constantly are like
that's
losing their jobs, or
that's
like
a good
they're
question.
getting into trouble with the law, or
That's a
like
great question.
what do you mean, like, or they're just sort of like drifting and they're like quote
That's a
unquote
good
losers, like
question.
what,
That's a
like
good question. So I'm thinking of one person in particular that really fucked up my shit for about 1 to 2 years.
okay,
And it was because we're both adopted. We've both
mm,
had similar struggles with identity and things like that. So
okay,
just knowing that by default, I was a lot more forgiving than I
yeah,
would have been in comparison to like, I don't know, some white person I meet at work, that sort of
or
thing.
just anyone random who's not adopted, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
And so this person's problem is that they are not as financially successful as they would like to be, which,
okay,
I can understand that plenty of people are in that situation. However, um, they are guaranteed to not be successful in this realm because they just have a bad fucking attitude, meaning
mm,
that they feel like they are too good to deal with the bullshit that it takes to deal with an entry level job or some sort of job that is not glamorous, but it is a stepping stone to something better, to something more than $30,000 a year type shit. And instead of saying, like, yo, this shit sucks, acknowledging the reality of the situation, and just barreling through it just so you can survive and have something a little bit better than the things that you're suffering through now, being like, no, I'm not putting up with this. This is an absolute injustice. And I don't deserve to be treated this way. And I'm not going any further. Fuck this job. And this was the sort of person that, like, did that like 6 times in a year and then was relying on me to borrow money type shit.
oh man, that's tough.
Because it's one of those things where it's like right? No, this was the first time that this has happened to me in my life where, like, I was close with someone. I very much identified with their struggles
Sure,
because
yeah.
these struggles came from similar sources as my own, as it
Yeah,
related to
yeah.
adoption, being Asian in a
Yeah,
white
but
world. But, at a certain point, right? It's like
how many yeah, yeah.
shit was difficult for me growing up, and it came with a certain understanding of, hey, I need to take the shit to be the shit. And so this person had a very comfortable upbringing, and comfortable to the point where, like, demographically they weren't even really like bullied, but they have qualities that if they were in any other environment they would have gotten the shit bullied out of them.
Oof, oof.
So it's sort of like I was like twice as cool, but was in an environment that's four times more cruel. So his expectations during childhood were set in such a way where he was expecting to be praised as a smart genius while also not being bullied, while also being highly compensated. And it's one of those things where
Hmm.
if you are willing to give up on getting your 4-year degree because of excuses that you've made, and then you're continuing to make excuses about like having shitty jobs and just being miserable all the time and being indignant toward me based on seeing the successes that I've had in my own individual life, then I really cannot fuck with you anymore. I mean, as much as I feel for those struggles, as much as I feel for sort of like that trajectory of falling short of aspirations,
Right.
that's happened to me at least once in my life
Of
before.
course.
But the difference is this motherfucker felt like, oh, well, I failed and like things have gone wrong. I'm not trying anymore.
Yeah,
I'm
well, then yeah, and then hitting up for money, and that's the tough thing. It's like you can have sympathy, but then, you know, being asked for money and it just seems like part of me wants, I'm thinking like I would probably I'd want to help, but I'm like, how much can I help? And like, will it be just that one time? Because you just know, like you just know that
Yeah.
like
No,
it's not going to
exactly.
be once.
Exactly.
And coupled with what you're saying about how they're like not even trying to help themselves, really, uh, it's like it's never going to end.
And I think that's really the first time that's really happened to me where I feel like
Man, that
I
sucks.
needed to make like a very clean cut in breaking up with this person relationship wise as a friend because and this is my subjective read, but I feel pretty confident in that subjective read, which is I think this person is entitled. I
Mm-hmm.
think they are at their core narcissistic
Hmm.
because of various sort of cluster B disorders that have not been formally diagnosed, and they are too smart, or they act too smart, or they're too insincere
Hmm.
for therapy because they
Hmm.
don't want to know what the real issue is. Because the real issue is
Right.
that they feel they're too good for things, but they don't have the qualifications on paper for anyone to give them any sort of respect because they don't know this person.
Well, and
And
you just said they don't want to like grind a little bit to like
exactly. Any
suffer
sort
like
of criticism
yeah.
or any sort of setback is met with just like the worst sort of temper tantrums you could expect from like a fucking
Oof.
5-year-old,
Damn.
with me having to walk on eggshells.
Dude,
And
well, that's the word. That's can't deal with that, man.
yo, I'll say this.
Can't
I
deal with
feel
that.
like this was someone that I deeply cared about, deeply.
Yeah.
And basically what I can look back in retrospect, in terms of what that relationship was now that that shit's completely cut off, is that person just saw me as like a source of resources and narcissistic
Mm,
supply.
mm. So like
And
both like actual like money resources and also like emotional like
yeah,
energy that they could
yeah,
leech
and
off of
like
you.
putting all his eggs in one basket emotionally to be his mother, his significant other, his male friend, and like every other possible person in the support network that people would spread across 10 people put just onto me.
Mm.
Um, and with the expectation that it's reasonable for me to do all that shit. And and responding to someone that can take zero criticism whatsoever, or else they explode into just wild temper tantrums.
Yeah, that sucks.
So I was held captive by that shit, and I
So you're
guess
saying that you do differently now, like, you think that that's sort of
woo,
you're done with that.
absolutely,
Good.
absolutely, because now at this like so to be honest, like navigating that did make me kind of cynical, as many
Mm.
difficult experiences in my life have. So but at this point now, I see people like approaching me like that, and I'm like this.
Stupid. I'm not gonna let you get the chance.
I'm not gonna let you get the chance.
Yeah.
Don't fuck
Yeah.
with my shit. I see what you're doing. I'm not a
Yeah.
fucking moron, and I'm not being paranoid. You're being a fucking weirdo, and I shouldn't have to put up with that because I put up with too much shit
So
to deal with
that
that.
yeah, that's a good segue to a question that that's been going through my head and I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, answer this
Yeah.
one. If you have any
Yeah.
idea what happened to that dude,
So
but then we'll get to my question.
I'll give a little so the way that this person manipulated me, they made it seem like if I was not immediately in their presence, intentionally helping them out with all the resources that I had, that they were going to kill themselves.
Oh,
Like,
one of those things.
yeah,
Oh,
one of
one of
those people
those
that is
types of
always just
situations.
like
Oh my
threatening
god.
suicide unless you do exactly what you want them to, sort of shit.
That's horrible.
I mean, I'm saying that now with clear perspective, but it took a very long time to acknowledge that because no one wants to think about someone they consider a friend in that way. So, with that in mind, any idea what happened to that dude is my understanding is that if me completely detaching myself and removing all forms of support that I did from his life, that he's just fine. I guess in some internal emotional sense, he's probably miserable. But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, like if he was going to, take his own life, he would have done that while he would have done that by now. And the fact that he hasn't proves to me that this was more about controlling someone through manipulation than it
Mhm.
ever was about sort of human needs that could only be provided by one person. So this
Mm.
person is probably just working some bullshit ass job that, you know, bullshit ass job. Everyone has a bullshit ass job.
Yeah.
But I feel like he has a bullshit ass job specifically because he does not want to confront the reality of just having any sort of criticism lobbed his way in a more challenging job where he could get paid more.
Yeah, that's uh, they're not really ever gonna be able to get anywhere if they can't, because it doesn't seem like they're competent enough or come from enough privilege where they can sort of continue to fail upwards, and it doesn't really matter how they
I
act as long as
I
it's not like
think they've
completely
reached
criminal.
that point where, on one hand, like they had a lot of childhood resources growing up, but their parents are retired and they're out of state.
But they're
Um,
not. It's like they were like rich working people, right? So it
yeah.
wasn't like someone who comes from so much money where like you have like a millions and millions of dollars, or
Okay. Yeah. They do
of
not
like
own
trust
the
fund,
means of
right? So like,
production.
yeah, it's like you can be someone like you're describing and sort of just continue to sort of fail but not have any consequences from it for a while
Yep.
if you're rich enough. But if you're
Yep.
not, then you're just going to continue to, as you said, work these dead end jobs and never be able to get anywhere and constantly feel um, put upon and stressed out because you don't have any money. Um, yeah, it sucks.
And here's another way I would put it. I kept myself around pretty close to this person during that time because I wanted to be the encouraging person that said, you know what? You can do this stuff. In fact, in a lot of ways, you're smarter than me. So,
Right.
it's more a matter of believing in yourself and putting yourself out there to get those things. And in my case, for cutting that shit out and saying no. It really took constant sort of opposition of me encouraging and them being like, "Oh no, no, no," because they crave the encouragement
Right.
more than
Right.
they crave the actual like positive result they say they want.
Right. They
And
just yeah. 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 Yeah.
and me finally
Wow.
realizing that my encouragement was what they wanted all the time, that validation, and not any actual sort of help with boosting the results of their life was critical in me saying, no, fuck this shit. And I was married too. I was married and long distance in grad school,
Oh
helping
my
this
god.
motherfucker out. And I think that's why I'm so mad about this. And I can talk about it anytime and bitch about how much of a fucking loser this person is, because at the end of the day, they threatened my marriage,
Yeah, that's
and
not good, man.
they were content with me completely failing out of school so we could be like failures together type shit. Sort of
Yeah,
like we're gonna be
don't
together forever, Eminem Stan type
right,
shit.
right. Don't
Fucking
let
sicko shit.
yeah, that you can't let someone drag you down like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Because it's so manipulative for people to use sort of like the, I'm gonna commit suicide thing. Like there are certainly people who do that and they're, and that's a cry for help. But if
Yep.
they're constantly making that threat to keep you sort of in their orbit and keep
Yep.
control of you, that's a different thing.
Absolutely.
And
And this was an
but it's hard.
everyday thing.
Yeah,
This
but
was
it's
an
it's
everyday
it's
thing.
hard because if you're a decent person and you're like friends with them, you're not gonna want them to do that. So
Yeah. And I
it's
had never
very hard
experienced that
to
from someone else
yeah.
before. So the way that I interpreted it
Yeah. Like
was, if no one else has showed this side of themselves to me before, then they must be really be hurting. But it
right.
turns out they're just
Right.
like, no, they really know how to beg.
They're just manipulative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
And I have
Well,
more, but I've been drinking too much of these truly.
the
I drank the citrus punch, official sponsor of the stream.
official, unofficial sponsor of the stream.
Exactly. So I need to use the restroom. I'll be right back, and
All
I'll have
right,
more
cool.
thoughts on this.
Good. And we'll
45 to 90
there's some
seconds.
questions. There's some questions. All right, go ahead. Okay. So let's see. Negativity and truth. Reading Plan A got me through the beginning of the pandemic. All right, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. It means a lot when people really get something out of the magazine and to listening to the podcast. I don't know if you're still here, Jayana. Jayana, hopefully I said your name right. But welcome to the stream. It showed up on my page. I don't know if that means that it just sort of showed up on the not Twitter, on the YouTube front page. Maybe it did. That'd be cool. Or maybe through Twitter saying that we're going to be live. But welcome if you're still here. Local black man, how you doing? How late were you? I don't know. We started the stream maybe an hour ago. By the time when you were posted this, not so late. We'll probably be on for another hour. But yeah, adoption and friendship, it sort of really made it, there were a lot of it, I'll talk about it more when Kyle gets back. But there's sort of like conflicting, contradictory uh motivations that have made it like harder for me and like easier for me, or not easier, but like drives me to like into friendships or stuff. So this was something that I wanted to ask you before you talked about your friend or your
Yeah.
your former friend
Former.
is do you think that being adopted contributed to you giving people like more benefit of the doubt, or like made you more vulnerable to this type of like emotional manipulation? Or do you think it made it hard, like, and or do you think some of the same things that maybe made you more vulnerable to it also made it harder for you to connect to people? Because I know you mentioned before that like you've become more cynical, or because of this guy, or like you've become more like uh I guess like guarded.
Yeah.
So like Was there like, is there something from being adopted, do you think, that has let's just focus the question. So is there
Yeah.
something from adoption that you feel has made it harder to make friends?
I guess I wouldn't necessarily say harder to make friends. I
Okay.
would say that it affects me, and it affects me by making me more, it has had a history of making me more tolerant or more accepting of things I probably shouldn't have been, and
Okay.
that were actually red flags to say, "Hey, this is not a good person for you to be around." It essentially made me more forgiving with the consciousness of being adopted, and sort of thinking about, well, if like the natural love of your biological parents can't be guaranteed,
Mm.
regardless of what the reality is, just in
Mhm.
terms of your visceral perception of it all, based on what you're told by society, that you're lesser because you're not with your biological parents because for whatever reason they didn't want you, or you're part of unique life circumstances that are inscrutable to the average person that lives with their natural parents. They don't even think about that shit. I think it hasn't made it more difficult for me to make friends, but I
Mhm.
think it has been an obstacle for me to ensure that all of my friendships and relationships are not toxic in some way, because I'm tolerating
Right.
something that shouldn't be tolerated, because I feel like if
Right.
I am less deserving of love or of a relationship, then I need to put up with more bad stuff than a person that has not been through the same circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I feel what you're saying. And I think you're right in that it doesn't make it harder to make friends. It's that it makes, yeah, as you said, more vulnerable to certain toxic behaviors,
Mhm.
uh, or that aren't, or unhealthy behaviors. And yeah, I agree with that.
And
Um,
for me, this is coming from someone that didn't have any toxic love dynamics with either of my parents. So
mhm.
they were very sort of idealistic in a way that was not unrealistic, in portraying and conveying a love to me that was mostly unconditional, in the sense that, like, if I embarrassed them or if I did something crazy in public, they weren't treating me like they didn't fucking know me type thing. um they always made me feel loved regardless of how fucking badly I was behaving or not following
Right,
rules.
right, which is
and
just normal parent stuff, right?
and like, in that sense, I'm coming from the best case scenario.
Right, right.
And even then, just knowing the perception of adoption and adopted children in general, that is what lowered my standards of, like, things I was willing to tolerate that should never have been tolerated or accepted.
Right. Because yeah,
So,
because I mean, I definitely grew up, and I've with that, with like sort of, I think sometimes I consciously knew I was acting in this way, or like had this fear, um, that even though there was nothing that my parents ever said or did that made me think that any, like, that there would be any chance that they would suddenly just decide, like what happens in some of the more horrible cases, not like complete, it's not like super common, but it does happen, that they would ever, like, just decide to change their mind about adopting me, right? Like, they never said anything, they never acted in any way. But it was just sort of like subconscious, and then as I got older, like this conscious fear of, I better be I better be as good and tolerate stuff that I don't want, like, or do whatever, um, so that, like, any small chance doesn't come to pass.
yep.
And I think that sort of translated into, as you were saying, sort of tolerating some people, um, that no one no one should tolerate, right? Or that you shouldn't sort of as easily forgive. Um, but I also think at some point as well, um, there were I might have, I know that other people have said that being adopted, like, and having those abandonment issues,
Mhm.
have caused other people to say like, well, they would just sort of cut people off too soon, or
Mm.
like they
Yep.
might take like one slight like insult, not even an insult, but like one like some slight like I was saying maybe like someone canceled plans, right? And they would like take that as all they must hate me and then like never talk to them again, right? So like almost irrationally be too trigger happy with like ending friendships
Yep.
and and I think on a more minor like in a more minor manifestation of a similar thing, I'll have dumb insecurities about like, oh, my friend hasn't texted me back quick enough. Are they really angry at me? Or something like that. Like just weird, like weird insecurities that like 4-year-olds shouldn't have. But
Mhm.
like I feel stems from sort of like, being adopted and having these, these abandonment issues.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that makes it harder at times to maintain friendships. But I've never had a problem making friendships,
Yep.
um, but yeah, I was just wondering if there was anything like, was there anything else that you can think of that you might think that like how you act or like some neuroses or or anxieties that you might have that relate to being friends or how you act in a friendship that
So I
stem from
think
adoption?
what you mentioned in terms of some people or some adoptees having really quick knee-jerk reactions to wanting to end friendships or cut things off because they feel slighted or because of something that was said wrong or it was in the wrong tone and it made them feel offended. I feel like with this fucking person I'm talking about, I was on the receiving end of that.
mm,
And
mm,
in the sense that, like, we would hang out, we'd have an okay time, but they would be complaining about someone they cut ties with because they asked the wrong question. Like that question could
okay.
have been like, hey, I mean, it seems like, you're not doing super well emotionally, but why don't you try exploring things that you haven't explored before, like trying to establish contact with your birth family? What do you think about that?
Mm,
And even just bringing up that topic and framing it like, what do you think about that? Just made them so heated and so viscerally upset that they walked out of the occasion that they were having that conversation in and then blocked the person's number that had asked that question. So having known that to happen from that particular person, that primed me and it conditioned me to not have any sort of negative reactions at all when things were blatantly or clearly wrong toward me, or they were insulting, or they were
mm,
taking advantage of me, just because I felt like this person's outburst of anger is going to destroy something that I don't want destroyed because I would like to see it flourish, that sort of thing. And when really the whole time it should have been, 'cause that manipulation is really interesting in the sense that when I was a kid and like someone gave me a look I didn't like, or they called me stupid, or they called me
mm-hmm,
Chinese, something
mm-hmm.
that made me indignant and mad, something that just made me like, grit my fists and shake with rage type thing, and I would just be like, man, fuck you. And just like come up with some sort of insult personally tailored to whatever their insecurities or quirks
Right,
were.
right.
And that
Scorched
that's
earth.
that's how I grew up, age 13, 16, 17, 18, up through high school and going into college. Like that's what I was like. And as a part of the process of me becoming more sensitive and more empathetic, I started to take what people were saying about their own feelings and reception of the world a lot more seriously. And it just happened to poorly coincide with being
Mm,
around this person
right. Where
and
they could take advantage of
where
that.
they could take advantage. Exactly.
Ugh.
Where I would have said in any other circumstance with any other person that is not being deceptive, like, shut up, you're being a fucking baby. You need to cut that shit out because it's immature. And I know you're better than that shit. So why the fuck are you dragging me through this shit? I would keep my mouth shut and then just continue to have like these things that would annoy me come up, but I wouldn't say anything because I was afraid they were going to explode at me. So
Ooh, bro.
when it comes to this sort of dynamic, like that's why I can really I can't say that I fully understand what women go through in an abusive relationship, but these sorts of experiences gave me a sample of what it's like to have to deal with that sort of shit. And you have all the agency in the world to say, "Hey, I don't have to fucking put up with this shit. It's fucking stupid, and I'm gonna leave." But
Yeah.
because of your care and love and loyalty to this person, you're like, they're very wounded. They're very vulnerable. I need to be more sensitive toward them, and I need to set aside my own personal
Right.
feelings to make them okay.
Right.
And
And
I got
then
tricked.
yeah, you got to realize that sometimes that's not the case,
Yeah.
right?
Sometimes you get tricked because people
Yeah.
are like, they'll do anything to get what they want. And since I'm not the type of person to do like dirty dog desperate shit to get what I want because I just want it off my own merits, I tend to believe people when they're like acting like
Mm,
desperate dirty dogs if they're asking for
yeah.
help. So it's 'cause it's just like I have this
Well, yeah.
tendency to project my own feelings into other people's feelings, and
Okay.
like if it takes me like 20 times more stress and frustration to reach a point where I'm yelling and screaming, I'm just assuming that the other person that's
Yeah.
yelling and screaming has gone to like that 20 times point
Right.
of dealing with shit. But it
Right.
turns
You
out like
assume
their
right.
tolerance is just a lot lower, and then they'll go crazy regardless of how small something is.
Right. So you're assuming that they have the same sort of higher threshold, and then if they are, acting crazy, and they must have gotten to that threshold already. So that means it's super serious because you would not
Exactly.
act that way unless it was super
That
serious.
is what
Yeah.
sustained a relationship like that for months or like a year plus longer than it should have. Like it's one
Yeah.
of those things where like I like to advertise myself as like, yeah, I'm pretty wise. Yeah, I'm pretty aware of how people act and what motivates people. And I don't ever get tricked. But I got tricked, damn it. Sometimes I just get tricked.
Well,
So
wisdom isn't like not getting tricked, right? Or not making
that's what I'm
mistakes,
coming to terms
you
with.
know?
It's
Like
like I
just
was like,
yeah.
man, I never get tricked. I am so smart. I'm never gonna get tricked. And then I'm just like, man, I really feel
Damn,
for
you
this
did.
person. And they're
Yeah.
tricking me.
And about it, right?
Yeah,
The real wisdom is that you learn from it and you don't let it
exactly.
happen again or happen as easily again. But
And
here's yeah, sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
I'm just gonna finish with
Yeah.
that experience, that sort of experience where when it's happening, something is wrong and you should be doing something different to stop it. And then you separately hear of someone in a circumstance where they can clearly just walk away. They could be like, fuck this shit. Why the fuck am I dealing with this? And walk away. But it's through this experience that I've had and feeling manipulated and projecting my own emotions onto other people's crazy reactions that I'm like, well, just because this is happening doesn't mean that I need to put up with it. Like, I need to really just evaluate what's going on and determine what's reasonable and what's not reasonable to deal with. And just to relate more to people that, you know, go through experiences of manipulation and abuse,
Right, and they
and they
don't
get
just
blamed by
leave
other
right away,
people.
right? They get strung along.
Yeah, and they get blamed by other people. Like, why didn't you
Yeah.
leave earlier? You went through all that shit, blah blah blah. But it's like, having gone through that myself, it's like
Yeah.
I know exactly the kinds of shit that manipulators pull to keep you in their orbit and to keep
Yeah.
you like serving their weird needs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a growth experience, and I hate having growth
Right.
experiences that big in what I consider to be this late into my life. But hey,
Yeah, but
sometimes people are real tricky.
you're constantly gonna have them, right? And I
Yeah.
think, like, thankfully, there wasn't some irreparable harm from it. Like, you didn't
Thankfully
get
not.
divorced, right? You didn't,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And I think, like, we were talking before about how, like, there's that transition where the from when the parents take care of the children, where the children have to take care of the parents. And I think, like, like, a lot of elderly people get tricked from, like, just, like, scams and frauds and, like, phishing things and, like, scam texts and stuff like that, and they thought, like, they would never like, they grew up protecting everyone else, themselves and their families from that kind of stuff, right? And
Yep.
now they're completely vulnerable. And like I'm dealing with that with my parents, with my mom. Like my
I'm
brother
dealing
and
with that
I
with my mom too. I
my brother and I are
absolutely understand.
constantly having to like deal with like the fact that like she falls for these scams, and then we need to deal with the fallout of it. And thankfully she hasn't lost any money or anything. It's not like permanent damage, but like it's just so. And I can imagine how frustrating and embarrassing it is for her. And I'm thankful that she doesn't like hide it, and like we're handling it, and I'm getting better at not getting very frustrated. But like I'm just trying to, it's like she thought she had, it's like you thought she had learned, she thought she had learned a lesson, and she was able to, that she wasn't going to fall for that stuff like in her life. Like she had never fall for it before.
Yeah.
But now it's like changed, right? So like,
Yeah.
you're thinking that you've learned that lesson permanently. Like, who
Yeah.
knows what's going to happen later
Shit.
on, right? Like that you're going to have to learn another lesson in a similar fashion, right?
Yeah, who knows what kind of cosmic scams I'll be encountering at age 60.
Well, I think part of it is like they think that they're, it's like all of us, right? Like there's some Dunning-Kruger a little bit in all of our lives where like we think we're a little bit more competent than we are. And also I think like she's just too trusting. People are just too trusting. And I think also part of it is that like as you get older, and even now, like you get older and you don't remember everything you might have done. And these scammers are very good at hiding and making it look legitimate.
Yeah.
So like they'll text, and she fell for a text one, not just email, text. But like they'll be like, "Oh no, your package is arriving," or the payment didn't go through, and it's for like something that they're hoping that's common enough that people are gonna be like, "Oh yeah, maybe I did forget that like to pay for X thing." I've done that before. Like maybe I've done it before, but it was like legitimate, but and it wasn't a scam, or like it's like not completely foreign to them, so they fall for it. So like, and then I think part of it, so people, they're preying on the forgetfulness and sort of the varying levels of dementia that older people might have.
Yep.
And the fear also, it's like, oh, I don't want to miss a bill. I don't want to like, so many of these scam messages are like penalty if you if you don't do it, urgent penalty, and like, it's like, really? But people fall for it, and I'm like, I can understand why, but it's like it's very frustrating. But I think it relates to how like you're like, oh, I'm never gonna fall for this again. I'm like, oh, you're gonna start falling for other things.
No, exactly. You avoid scams in one realm, and there's another realm that pops up.
But there was this question here, I think, related to like what we're talking about with like our foundational, or a term that people have used in the past. I think I've seen inklings that there are some adoptees that don't quite love the term, and I think this book has a bit of a mixed reputation. I know it's one that is heavily recommended to adoptees. I haven't actually read it myself. It's called The Primal Wound. And the question was posed that, have you read The Primal Wound? If yes, curious to hear what you think about the writer's theories about separation from our mothers affects our relationships. So I haven't read it. So unfortunately, I'm not familiar with this particular part of the work. Have you read it, Kyle?
So I'll be honest and say that it is absolutely one of those books that's been on my reading list that I have not read. I have not read it.
If we do read it, we will talk about it.
Yes. And I'll say that among the mental health practitioners that focus on adoption and transracial adoption that I respect, they have read that book and they think there are valid points to it that are now out of date, where the core sort of argument as it relates to, I guess, this primal wound, this idea that if you're separated from your parents, particularly your mother, it is this lifelong emotional wound that inhibits your ability to form close, personal, and romantic and loving relationships. And on the basis of my limited understanding of what the thesis is of that book, It is true, but with some caveats, and it has been elaborated on over the last couple decades.
Yeah, yeah, it's an older book.
So it
Um,
informs
yeah,
it informs a certain line of thought in like psychology or sociology that is considered valid. It is the trajectory that things have taken as it relates to studying adoption and adoptees. But my understanding is that because it was written a couple decades ago, it is limited in its ability to be comprehensive. But at the very least, it forms
yeah,
sort of like a sound theoretical foundation.
yeah. It's an old ass book, but I agree with what Kyle's saying. Right, I think there are some core basic good parts of it because I do think that I don't personally have an issue with the term primal wound. I kind of feel like it is a kind of good description of what separation from our mothers and our fathers. I think probably most effective, but I think fathers as well. But I think the separation from our first families is sort of this deep wound that never fully heals. And like any wound, be it physical or psychic, um, will have an effect on your life, throughout your whole life. I think it varies to a degree on how much it affects person to person, but I do think there's an effect. And yeah, and I think there is I think for me, generally, it's just the feelings of like unworthiness and maybe lack of and that unworthiness is manifested in like I'm not worthy of love or I'm not worthy of certain things that has affected sort of my romantic relationships and also my friendships. um but in a general sense, but more in a general sense of like it affects my self-esteem. So you know uh, I just don't try as maybe I feel like I don't try to be friends with people as much, or like maybe I feel like, oh, they're not going to like me or stuff like that. um but I don't think it's like something that is like it hasn't prevented me from it's not like 100% prevented me from having a life full of like connections and stuff like that. It's a whole spectrum, right? Like it's going to make it extremely hard for some people. For other people, it's going to have very negligible effects. Um, but it's certainly, I think, there for every adoptee, right? I don't think any adoptee can say that it's never affected them or has no effect at all. Like I just wouldn't believe them, to be quite
Yeah.
honest. Um,
Because I
but
guess
yeah,
I think about my own life, and I think about, I'm not a complete idiot. I'm not a stupid moron, but I still feel these. I feel like any sort of feeling of unworthiness or any feeling of inadequacy that would be tempting me to change my perception of myself has been deflected and been fended off by my general feeling of competence, meaning
that's
like
good.
meaning like I have all these insecurities because like I don't fucking have like my natural parents like raising me and like exposing me to the world. But because I meet these I guess these conventional credentialed requirements of being a respectable human being, like getting good grades in school, getting a degree from college, getting married. These are all sorts of markers of like coming of age, maturity, and competency. And it's really only because of those things that I've had confidence in those realms that I've been able to fight off a lot of those feelings of inadequacy or insecurity. But even then, I still experience them a lot. So I guess I consider myself once again to be, one of the better case scenarios of feelings of self-esteem among adoptees because just through opportunities that I've had or things I've been exposed to that have just made me feel like, okay, well, I'm decently smart. I can figure shit out. So I guess I really extra feel for the people that are just like
Yeah,
totally average people, right in the middle of that bell curve, and there's nothing that separates them as being like completely just terrible or complete geniuses. And you really have a hard time defining who or what you are if there's nothing that people are really saying positively or negatively. So I don't know, that's something that I think about a lot. Is
Yeah,
I've got my own insecurities because of this adoption related stuff, but I've been able to fend a lot of it off.
that's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, yeah, I'm glad to hear that. And I think people discount themselves too much because I know I do, right? Like my competence or like my I think it goes to like the sense of worthiness, right? Like just
Yeah.
that, and uh, yeah. So it makes me glad to hear that you're able to sort of fend off those feelings because you are so confident, or you've learned the confidence or to sort of you know realize that you are competent, like you are good at what you do. You are knowledgeable, and you know, um, so that's good. That's good.
Took a
Uh,
real long time.
oh, it takes a long time, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
unless you're a complete psychopath who will.
No, exactly. With no awareness of what other
Right,
people are like.
right. Um, all right, cool, man. Uh, let's see what else was on our agenda here. Um, let's see.
Covered some of the bad stuff.
Oh, does anyone have any questions in the chat? Yeah, it's always good to ask them.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, like talking about the primal wound. Like I wish there was an updated version or a book like this. I'm sure there probably is one, to be honest, right? Like I don't want to say I wish there was one. There probably is one, but I'll have to look this up because um, I don't necessarily want like a follow up directly to the primal wound, right? Um, I want something that's not just an academic paper that sort of adds onto it. I'd want some sort of more mainstream sort of popular book that continues the work of the primal wound, but like makes it modernizes it more, um, and because I think there has been a lot more understanding and thought around sort of how adoption affects people emotionally, and I think in general there's been a recognition that adoption is a trauma, right? It's not just sort of something that can be papered over or uh you got adopted and your parents love you, shouldn't have any lingering issues. It doesn't matter where you came from. um so I think that is becoming less, even though it's still very prevalent.
Mhm.
I think it's becoming less and less, it's losing ground. I think people are slowly chipping away at the foundation of that. So I think that's good, and so I think there's fertile ground for someone to write a book um, that sort of adds on to that theory, right? Um, Something I resonate with is having friends that see me and my half siblings as actual siblings. They don't see my stepdad as not all of our dads. Yeah, yeah. I mean, having people who validate, you know, your experience, or like if you believe that if you consider yourselves an act just like full actual siblings, whatever that might be, um, and that your stepdad is just all of your dads and not have to caveat or put those labels on it, and you surround people with that feel that way, and that'll help a lot, because you don't need people in your life who are going to just be like, well, actually just a half sibling. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like, fuck that. uh so yeah, I mean, that certainly helps. It's easier, I guess, because he's basically been my stepdad since I was one and raised us all, but it's never been a hindrance in our relationship. So he's just dad. Yeah. Yeah, that helps. Um, he's just dad. Stepdad is like one of those, like, if you have to, like, just sort of like I never really, I don't talk like when I'm talking, if someone's gonna ask me about my parents, I don't like say, well, my adoptive parents or whatever. It's like no, I talk. It's just when I have to like, if contextually, if I'm going to talk about both parents, I'll might like to differentiate. I'll use the
Yeah.
term, but it's like it's not like something in my head I think about all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
guess I just default to adoptive parents because they're the ones that I actually have experience with.
right. Any deal of the week? I know
Sorry,
that
no deals of the week. No deals
there
of the
was
week this
general
week.
Jack stuff about like it's the fall or it's the winter and it's becoming fall. Or
Yeah,
sorry, it's becoming spring, right? So like the winter stuff might become discounted now,
yeah, anything that's
or
end of
and then in the
season.
winter, the fall stuff's always anything out of season, right? Directly out of season. Of the direct previous season will be cheaper. I think there was, but nothing specific. And my car saga, I've just decided just not to get a new car. My wife's
It's
very happy
official.
about that. Yeah, I just like unless something really screaming deal comes across, I've decided just I'm happy with my car. And the motivation was never because I was unhappy with my car. It was just sort of like I kind of want a new one. I don't know. Um, that was it. But yeah, no, I'm this. I was actually called. So like for a while, I was looking at like wagons, right?
Yeah,
And there are only a couple of manufacturers that even have a wagon. And there's Volvo, Audi, like Subarus, I guess you could say are wagons, but I don't really like Subarus, so I didn't call them. And then like so there's Audi, Volvo, I think BMW, Mercedes. And I guess I called like a local Audi dealer about something, and they called me. They're like, an Audi A4 Allroad is on the ship. Are you interested? Like literally, they're like, it's on the ship,
like they
sailing
actively.
from freaking Germany, right, or whatever they're making it. Um, and are you interested? And I was like, not really, but email me, what the price is gonna be, and if there are any rebates or not. They're like, no rebates, but it's like MSRP. I'm like, I guess that's okay, but I'm like, I don't really want to pay $56,000 for a car, so I'm okay. But I just found it hilarious that they're like, it's on the ship. Are you interested? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, let me know when it's when it gets to the dealership, I'll give it a test drive. And they're like, it's going to be sold by then. I'm like, all right then.
Damn, that's crazy.
Uh,
Like not even having driven it and having it be sold.
Now you can get us all PS5 since you're not paying for a new car note.
It's true. You can get the Ragnarok bundles.
Nah. But yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess I could get some people, but that's not going to happen. Man, but anyone, is it hard? Is it easier to get a PS5 these days? Because when I got one when it came out, and I had to
Wow.
like, I wasn't going to pay a scalper, right?
Yeah.
So it took me like 3 or 4 months, and I stocked like Best Buys. Like I actually followed, like there were people who who grew like huge followings on Twitter because all they did was track PS5 inventory.
Yep.
And they would send the link out, and they were like competing people doing this. And I got lucky, I think, on like the PlayStation official one, because you would like enter the queue and you would sit there and like the number
Yeah.
would pound down, and then sometimes it would get to 0, meaning that like your place came up, and then they'd be like, it's all sold out. I'm like,
we're out of spots today.
why did you keep me online if you knew that once I got to the end of the line there would be none? Why didn't you just kick me out? So
It's easier now. I guess I follow this Twitter called Fat Kid Deals, and I'd say like
deals
every other day he's posting listings for PlayStation 5s with no reservation required or any approval required or any sort of selection from a raffle required. I mean, for
I
me,
know it's
like
not like super easy, but
I did the stupid ass thing, and like I was watching the stock of PS5s for like a year. And I got sick of watching because I kept getting screwed. So I joined the the GameStop like plus members club, whatever the
How much
hell
does
it's
that
called.
cost? It's like not
It's
that
20
expensive.
bucks.
20 bucks a month?
No, thank God, not 20, but
All right, 20
$20
bucks a
for the
year.
year.
Okay.
And I guess it has some discounts on pre-owned games and shit like that, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I basically had to reserve my spot by getting like a priority selection pass to purchase a PS5 when they became available. So I got mine in June or July of 2021.
All right. Yeah, no,
It was rough.
it takes forever, man. It still seems like it's not like they're no first party. Seems like it's still hard to get. If you want a car deal, you can always look at Buick. They have the most inventory. Yeah, they have the most inventory because no one wants a Buick. That's the.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone that's ever been like, I want to get a new car. I'm thinking about a Buick.
I remember like a few years ago, they started the whole like, that's a Buick, like commercials.
It's not as
because,
shitty as I thought it was.
yeah, like, oh, yeah, that's a Buick, and like they had like young people getting out of it because it has like the reputation of being shitty, but expensive because it's like Buick is considered a luxury brand for some reason, and old people, only grandparents have it. So like they tried to rehabilitate the image by being like, that's a Buick, and then only young people were in the ads. I don't think it quite worked.
It really worked.
Aren't Buicks like a big deal in China? Are they?
Well, I guess
Really?
they do. I didn't know.
Your grandfather's Buick is hot in China, but not for long. This is 2019. Okay. Oh my gosh. They still?
Guess so.
It seems like they're falling though. They even got a luxury mini. Yeah, that doesn't Ford make Buick. No, it's GM. Okay. It seems like they're struggling now. Why is Buick so popular in China? Buick name is erased from Buick, says sales slip for century. Why Chinese buyers love Buick. This is 2013. So yeah, I think anything in like the 2022 and older, they're like Buick is falling in popularity in China. Before then, it's like super popular, so it might be falling in popularity. Yeah, I mean, I think with the advent, like, I think with the advent of the local Chinese manufacturers, Buick is like falling on rough times there in China. Like, why get a Buick when you can get a BYD or a Neo or anything like that? Like they're just better, and they're no like EV Buicks, right? So
Yep.
like they don't even have that many hybrid Buicks. So like in China is, yeah, why get a Buick when you get a BYD? Just why? Or like a Tesla. So I mean, the only Buick I would get is the Regal Torex, which is their wagon, but they stopped making those. So the latest that you can get, model year you can get of that is like 2020.
Huh.
Yeah, it's like, and so and GM has Cadillac and they have Buick.
Yep.
And Cadillac still sells in America. I mean, the Escalade and all that stuff. So like, and Cadillac they only really sell the Escalade, right? They don't really sell their sedans.
Yeah, they don't really sell anything else.
So, and like, I can't quite figure out which brands, American brands, are supposed to be the luxury brands and which ones aren't, because
There's not
like,
much of a difference.
well, they're I mean, well, the quality I don't know, yeah, but like like the pricing, you can't even look at the pricing and be like, oh yeah, this one
Yeah.
is definitely the luxury one, that one's not. Like,
Yeah, because if you look at like a Chevy Silverado or a GMC Yukon
yeah,
versus an Escalade, it's like basically within $10,000 of each other.
yeah. And we got a lift the other day, and it was like
Yeah.
a Chevy Terrain or a Chevy. It was one of their SUVs, but it was like not quite as big as an Escalade, but like what was it? It's his Terrain. Yeah, Chevy Terrain, right? Yeah, it's just one of the SUVs. It's like one of their smaller SUVs, right?
Yeah.
It was super nice inside. It's overall a crappy car, and they said the finishes are subpar. I don't know. The finishes seem pretty nice. Um, but like, yeah, like I don't know which ones are like the Jeep Grand Cherokee is super expensive, but not is but Jeep isn't really a luxury brand, right? So like
Yeah.
it's not luxury.
Yeah,
But
I
then
mean,
they
I've
have
seen
like the
some of those
Grand
Grand
Wagoneer,
Cherokees like
Wagoneers.
$75,000.
Yeah, like they're super expensive. So like you can't look at the prices necessarily and say that, like, and I think and that's my complaint also with like Toyota and Lexus, right? Like normally you could have been like, okay, every Lexus version of a car is just going to be more expensive and also be nicer, right, than the Toyota equivalent. Like even if like mechanically mainly it's all the same,
Mhm.
like it's going to look different, and the interior materials and the fit and finish will be better in the Lexus, right? Even if it's probably not worth the price jump, it still will be better, right? So at least you'll be able to get, you do get more. But then like there's some Toyota models are super expensive. Like the Toyota Sequoia is
Yeah,
like
that's quite.
65, $75,000, right? If you tack on some of the dealer markups, so they're pretty expensive. And I'm like, that's like that's Lexus territory.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, it for some of the trim levels, of course, like if you get the GX or the LX, they can go way higher than that. But it's like the price differences and like the Toyotas are getting really nice inside too. So why get a Lexus? You get a Toyota. Um, yeah, like the Grand Wagoneer is a full blown luxury car, but it's a Jeep. But the Jeep is not a luxury brand. Um, the Sequoia is like the Land Cruiser, which is for many rich people who don't want others to know they are rich, right? Like, so yeah, you can get a
Uh-oh.
Sequoia and not have to get a
Did we lose
GX.
him?
I'm here. You here? The Honda Civic slowly creeping up and up to being a $30,000 car is hurting my soul. Yeah, I mean, can you guys hear me? I think so. Oh, Kyle left. He'll be back. Honda Civic. Yeah, like there are no decent small cars that are like $30,000 or less. Though I mean, I wouldn't say none. There are some, but like people do, even like the Corolla. Um, like like say goodbye to cheap cars. Like the Chevy Bolt.
Hey.
Hey, he's back. Like the Chevy Bolt, right? Like maybe I'll share my screen. We can go through some of this stuff. Present, share screen.
Man,
Wait.
cheap cars. Like I always had my eye on cheap cars, like for my whole life up until now. And man, the cheap cars fucking suck now. Like the the cheapest car in America right now, the Mitsubishi Mirage, 3 cylinders, fucking piece of garbage. It's the worst car that I've seen in my life.
Mitsubishi. Never buy a Mitsubishi, dude.
Oh my goodness.
Though it's interesting. I've heard good things about the Mitsubishi. Was it the Eclipse? No, not the
Eclipse?
Eclipse. What's their SUV? Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi.
I gotta look it up.
Yeah, no, Mirage.
No.
No, Outlander.
Outlander.
Their
That's
Outlander plug-in hybrid in 2023. They completely redesigned it. Supposedly, it's good, but it's also gotten to be pretty expensive. Like it's not as expensive as others, but so I'm going to share my screen. So like, okay, so the Outlander plug-in hybrid. Yeah, so like the cheapest one
damn. Starting at
is almost
39.
40 grand, right?
Yeah.
And this is a plug-in hybrid. So it's actually cheaper than a lot of the other plug-in hybrids, right? Of this size,
True.
because it's technically like a 3-row, because there's like a teeny third row, I believe. But even if you get the cheapest one, and I think it comes with like standard, you have to get the connection subscription. Not even, let's say just the silver, right? No special color, or like the black. It only comes with black fabric, right?
Damn.
And then like they have different packages, right? Let's not get any packages. You can black it out. Right? This website is bullshit too. Dynamic shield illumination. Like you can illuminate your shield.
Who cares? Let's see that price.
So it's $41,000 because that's with the destination fee.
Yeah, with destination fees.
What is welcome? Welcome fee is $195.
Welcome.
What? What is that? Yeah, so like this car, which, you know, I mean, is it all-wheel drive? Electric Civic hatchback. Yeah, exactly. Manufacturers learn that it's better to make more money per car, and thus cheap cars are dying. The volume of sales has gone down,
Yeah.
but the percentage of profit per vehicle has gone up faster than the actual volume sales dip. So that means that profit's gone up, right? So their margins. So it's actually more profitable for them to make more and sell less than to sell more and to make less. So at whatever their current profit margin was. So they figure they can't drive up the profit margin without hurting the bottom line, hurting the volume. So they're just gonna they're able to see the elasticity of the market is not as high as they thought it was. Like it's pretty inelastic. So they can raise the prices a lot more than they thought they could for each percentage of drop in sales volume.
I think so. I think a lot of people just look at it like, can I afford the monthly payment with financing regardless of what the
they're always
APR
looking
is?
right, and they're always looking at this monthly payment number.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the total like out the door price plus taxes and all that. But this also creates an opportunity since there will always be a need for cheap cars. Yeah, I mean that's the other argument, right? Like if there was some upstart manufacturer, maybe, because I don't think the legacy ones are going to do it, right? Like,
yeah.
At the same time, like you can go to let's say like Kia, right? So Kia, they have the Rio, right? So the Soul is pretty cheap, right? It starts at 20, less than 20. Some people don't like it, but it's pretty small, but a lot of like cargo space, 4 people. But like for sedans, right? They have the Rio.
Yeah, the Rio.
The Forte. The Forte is really nice. Like my wife has a Forte, a 2020.
Wow. 35 average. MPG.
What's that?
35
Yeah, no, it
MPG.
gets great. It gets great mileage. But
looks
like
pretty
I
cool
don't
too.
Yeah, you know where I live.
Man, it's so
But like
weird
the
for me to see zip
LX,
codes with zeros in front.
like the LX is, I think, front wheel drive. What is it? They don't even tell you. What the performance? Oh my gosh. Am I an idiot? Did they not? Oh, you couldn't see that. Sorry. Leave this page. Where do they say how many wheels drive the car?
I mean, this has got to be a front wheel drive, right? Just given the price alone.
It's definitely, it has to be front wheel drive. Where the fuck is? Are we just missing it? Chat? Are we just?
I'm, I'm,
just
I'm
not.
looking. I don't see it. Usually, it's listed as one of the main specs.
All right. All right. Edmonds will tell us. Yeah, if it was all-wheel drive, they'd tell us. That's
Oh
true.
yeah.
But you would think they would say which drive, the front or two wheels it would be.
I just assume that if it's not a fancy car, that it's front wheel drive.
Yeah, and they always usually like advertise that it's real wheel drive. If it, yeah, my God. I guess we're just idiots. I can't. It's not.
Lowest trim is front wheel drive.
Okay.
Allegedly.
What in the? Because it doesn't. I swear to God, it's not telling us.
Yeah, it's not.
Either way, the Forte is a good car, and it is cheap. Like the base model is cheap, but it's hard to find for that MSRP, right? Like it's hard to find it for actually 20 grand.
Wow.
Go to specs. Go to specs on the Kia website. Okay. Where? Performance.
Performance. You gotta uncollapse a couple things.
Layout. Front wheel drive.
Okay.
There it is.
Now we know.
What the hell? Yes, but and then I don't think it's available in all-wheel drive. I think it's it would tell you. So like usually when you go to like the configurator, so like when you go to build yours, Kia usually has like it says like all-wheel drive as one of the options here, or like if you go to the features or packages or upgrades, you can like give it. But my wife has the 2022 GT line. She leased it. But like you get the LX, and the LX has, pretty good features. Like it has everything you'd want, really. And it gets great fuel economy. It's
Yeah,
pretty
41
it's
highway.
spacious enough. I think it's spacious enough. Like, zippy. Like it looks great. She gets a lot of comments on it because she has. Just show it to me. She has this color. It looks great in person. Like it looks great, and she has like the GT. So
Man,
maybe
I've
it's
always wanted a blue car.
I think well, in 2022 you could get the deep sea blue in the GT line because hers has like more of the red, right?
The red accent, yeah.
Yeah, and she has it in that blue. So yeah, so Forte, yeah, Kia does have that class, and like, but people don't want them, right? People want the yeah, want the Ram 1500s, and like I've been seeing a lot of trucks as I drive more, because I'm driving for work more, and the trucks are so fucking big, dude. They're so big. Like a Ram, or Ram.com, Ram trucks.
Man,
Trucks
I'd
and
just be afraid
vans.
of running shit over because of how high it is.
Dude, it's so high. Ram 1500 TRX trims. Laramie, Bighorn, Tradesman. Is there a TRX truck? What is there? Ram TRX? TRX. Ram TRX. Oh, it's a different truck. It's not Ram 15 TRX is a new. Oh, yeah, okay. I have $83,900
Damn.
just lying around for a fucking truck. Are you serious? Yeah, look at how big this is. Like it doesn't do any justice to how big that is on the fucking road. Like I don't have like a huge SUV. I have like a 2018 Sportage. But like I'm on the road, I'm like, this is fucking huge. Like the hood of the car is like at the top of where my car is. Like the top of my car is where
Damn,
like the
yeah.
hood ends,
Yep.
ends here, right? Like almost.
Yeah, it's like 5
It
feet off
feels
the
like
ground.
that. It feels like that. Um Yeah, the F-150 is big for no reason. It used to be like the middle road small truck. Now it's like gigantic. It used to not be like that in the early 2000s. Yeah, well, because Americans just want bigger and bigger shit. I'm surprised that the Hummer didn't make a comeback before they made the ridiculous EV version. But I'm just surprised that the Hummer even like. Yes, I know that like they went through a time where like people were, the gas prices are higher than now, so like it went out of fashion. But there have been plenty of time where gas is not that expensive. See one every now and again. I see so many Teslas, like even more than I used to. Like it seems like almost every like 2/5 of the cars are like 4 out of 5 cars are Teslas now. It feels like maybe like 3 out of 10, but it's a lot more. Rivians, I've seen maybe 1 or 2 actually on the road. There was one parked in my neighborhood.
Oh.
Oh yeah, Jeep stepped in with their wagon to undercut Hummer. Yeah. Teslas are terrible. Yes, they are. They also drive really slow. Like that's a funny thing. It's like you would think like Teslas are like always touted for being like super fast, but like no one ever drives them that fast. And I don't trust the drivers in them. I don't trust most drivers, so I try to like stay away from most people if I can and give people a lot of space. But like I don't trust the Tesla drivers because I don't know whether they're driving their cars or letting their cars drive themselves. So I try to give Teslas a wide berth whenever I can. Usually that's an easy thing to do because I'm just driving faster than they are, so I just pass them.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like the trucks are just fucking huge, and they're not cheap.
Yeah, I mean, people are getting them on like 72 to 90 some month terms, like
Look at
20% interest.
this. Oh, I can't even. I can't even. Can I change this? I can't even change it. Like this, the TRX is just a ridiculous version
Yeah,
anyway. So they're like, why are you going to change it?
6.2 liters, stupid.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or
Oh, I can
not.
add a engine block heater. Why would I do that? Oh, okay. It's easier to start in cold weather. All right, fine. That's it. Packages. Okay. Bed utility group. Advanced safety group. TRX carbon fiber package. Yeah, I need the leather and carbon flat bottom steering wheel and the real carbon fiber interior accents. Let's just go full hog. Let's just get the whole equipment level too. Can I get number one? No, one. Okay, one is inclusive of two, or two is inclusive of one here. Dude, it's crazy. That guy didn't get charged with murder. His wife didn't want to charge him with murder.
Damn.
Let's add the towing group. Advanced safety. I need the utility group. You know, I mean, I need the deployable bed step by Mopar. I need all that. I need the carbon fiber. Look at it. I'm already over 100 grand. I need this. I need that. I need the two-tone paint color. Oh, wait. Monotone is more expensive. I get the monotone.
Wow.
Black power folding trailer tow mirrors. I need the bigger mirrors. I need the rock rails. I need the more expensive wheels. Let's see. I need the the whatever tire carrier. Why can't I add that? Okay. I need the tonneau cover. Oh, I read that the tonneau covers that like cover the beds actually
Yeah.
add a lot of range on your car. Like they increase efficiency
Huh.
because they prevent
Yeah, the air
air
from.
to go into the bed, and that
Okay.
drags because it tries to escape through the tail. It can't do it. So if you just cover it, it
Huh.
doesn't go, right? I need the ram bar. Gotta have that. And I need the lower two-tone paint. Oh, I need two-tone exterior. Okay, well, the two-tone exterior is only $200, but this is $250. Okay, so I'll go for the two-tone exterior and the lower two-tone. All right. Oh, I need the moon roof, panoramic sunroof. I need the red interior accents. I need the trailer reverse steering control. Here we go. I'm at
Okay.
$111,525. And let's see if we can actually find one of these bad boys. And how much are they gonna ask for it? Because that's the thing. Ram 1500. Auto Trader can suck sometimes. They don't have all the trim levels and shit. I knew. Ram 1500. All right. But we want TRX boys. And want the moonroof. You know what? We'll keep these. We'll clear this out, and we'll just find the most expensive one. We'll sort by highest price first. All right. Well, 108. So I can't find the fully loaded one in my area, but let's expand the radius. Yeah, here's one. All right, so there isn't that high of a advertised markup here. Only $9,000.
Yeah, $9,000.
It's not so bad.
Damn.
All these truck packages and add-ons are just real life DLC for petite bourgeois chuds. Yeah, man. I mean, it's just one way to get more money out of people's pockets, right? If you order one, the TRX is sticker, but if you want to buy off the lot, it may be 5K to 10K over sticker. Yeah, like we're seeing, right? These are 5 or 10, right? But if you order it, you'll probably get it for MSRP, but you have to wait. Another car is the Toyota GR Corolla. I'm not like, I know that people get like all up about these like the GR Corollas and the Civic Type R's and stuff. It's like I'm never gonna it's just too try hard for me. Like I don't like one of the things I don't like the people who buy them. Like I don't like the scene around them, so I don't want to like be associated with it. And I feel like they're just not such great like just daily drivers, right? Like, do I really want a daily driver like a Type R? I don't know. Anyway, do you drive at all, Kyle?
I mean, not really overall. I mean, I drive a little bit, but I have a Honda Fit. I don't really give a shit.
Nice, dude. Honda Fit.
Yeah,
Dude, it gets you from point A to point B. Like
exactly. It's the
I-
nicest car I've ever had.
there you go.
Before then, I had Saturns and Chevys. So
Honda Fit, they don't make those anymore, man.
yeah, I got the
It's sad.
last. I got the last one, 2019.
It's kind of sad.
They're going away from smaller cars.
Well, it's like a hatch too, right?
Yeah,
So you can fit a lot of shit in that, I
you can
bet.
fit a lot of shit in there. You can fit a bike in the back seat.
Dude. I don't know why, man. Like everyone wants a fucking huge truck that they're never gonna use for like a truck things. People want like SUVs, but they only drive themselves places.
No, exactly.
Like I don't
Just going for,
understand
like, the
it.
cheapest, nicest thing I can get.
I don't I don't understand. But at the same time, like I wanted to get like a Stinger and stuff. Like, why do I need a V6? You know, why do I need any? I don't. It's just like you're like, can I afford it? Is it gonna be nice? Like, is it gonna make me feel good? And I'm like, oh yeah, kind of. And then like I realized like that's why I was like my motivation for it. I'm like, fuck, I can't do that. So I was like, you know what? I realized just no car. Like if I needed one, like it broke down or something, then I'll have to get one. But there's no reason. There's just no reason. So I'm trying not to buy stuff just because like I have some money burning in my pocket or something, and like, oh, it'd be fun to get like a tablet. It'd be fun to get this. I'm like, do I really need it? Do I really? Am I gonna really use that? Like, because I've been looking at like, do I want to get like a tablet? I'm like, oh, it'd be fun. But I'm like, is it that much more utility for like sitting on my couch watching TV and like dicking around on my phone? Is it that much better to like to be dicking around on a tablet? No, I'm not. No. So why spend $400 or $500?
You're right. I mean, I got an iPad and it just sits on the kitchen table. So
Yeah. Like get a used Aston Martin Signet. What the hell is that? Let's look it up, folks. Let's look it up together. Aston Martin. Yeah, there we go. Images. Oh, nice. Are you serious? Look at those wheels. Look at it. Look at it. What the?
damn.
What
Yeah,
are
it's
these
like a
wheel wells?
Scion
What do they do
IQ.
this for?
Oh, it's a V8. Shit.
V8 2023. How much are these? The one-off Signet V8 is the most hilarious city car in history. Exuberant and entertaining, it's properly British. The most outrageous, noisy, and thirsty city car to ever exist. There is and only ever will be one of them. Boo. Oh my god. I guess it was like not made very. It was not made, like a lot of them weren't made, like the Signets. Crazy. I don't think I'll ever get my Civic hatchback. Me, wifey, and the pits. Yeah. Yeah. Tech is definitely my guilty pleasure. I should have bought stock instead of all these phones and tablets. Yeah. There's a rebadged Toyota IQ. You know what I saw recently that I didn't even know Toyota made was the Toyota Corolla MI or IM.
I think the
IM.
Corolla
Yeah.
IM.
Toyota Corolla IM. Like I didn't even know they made this. And they must have made it for only a few years. Yeah, like where's the wiki page on this? Yeah, but I didn't even know they made this. It's like a hatchback version of the Corolla, kind of. Yeah, it's like a weird. It's like before the Corolla Cross, right? It's like a hatchback Corolla. Someone had it in my town. They were driving it around. Oh, it's the Scion. It was formerly the Scion IM.
Yep.
Not the most well-reviewed car. I would flip that little car. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, can you even get one? Like even get one to buy? Maybe an Auto Trader they would. Do you think Auto Trader has it? Or even like Aston V other Aston models. Any Yeah, they don't even have Aston Martin Signet for sale. For sale, classic driver. Two of them for sale. One in Portugal, maybe. Oh my God, they want $64,000 for it. Oh, it's in France. It's a manual. What is it a V8? What is it? It's hilarious. That is so funny. So funny. How do you know these cars, man? I have no idea they even made this thing. But yeah, no new car for me unless something really like crazy good like deal comes along. But I'm not actively looking anymore. All right. So I think I like cars. Yeah, I hear you. So I think we're about set. Teen, just to make sure, Teen, are you in here? If you are, then I'll stay on. I don't want to leave just as you joined like we did last time. By the way, we can't even see who's actually on the stream until you say something in chat.
Yeah.
So we don't check like that. I don't think there's any way for us to know. So but I apologize. That was very awkward. Hopefully we don't do that again. We'll see you next week vlogging from your new car. Don't say that. Don't say that, man. Don't say that. It might happen. All right. Well, thanks everybody. And we really appreciate everyone, watching us.
It's wonderful.
We really appreciate it. And yeah, that's it.
We'll see you next week.
Bye now.
Peace.
Peace.